Happy Sunday, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome once again to Tales from 2 a.m. from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. I'm the podcast producer, and remember, it's just not podcast here at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. You might check us out just for the podcast on your favorite podcast platforms, here on Facebook, here on YouTube. But remember how we all started on the editorial side. It is how I got started too. So you're used to listening to Jeff Hartman, Michael Beck, Dave Schofield, Tony Defeo, Jeffrey Benedict, and so many more. But they got their start here with BehindTheSteelCurtain.com on the editorial side. So if you need breaking news, it's there. You're going to find it first, and that's really the way to go. So it's fantastic. We call it the one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers. That's true. I call it the non-stop shop because anytime you go on there, you're going to find an article, whether it be, like I said, breaking news. It could indeed be something like an editorial. It could be a film study. We've got guys that know X's and O's like crazy. So check it out for anything you need as far as Pittsburgh Steelers go. Now, what's Tales from 2 a.m.? I talked about breaking news. Tales from 2 a.m. is not really breaking news. We're going to talk about news of the day too. That's fine. But today, we're going to open it up as a forum. We're going to have some fun. It is going to be very live chat oriented. I'm going to talk to you all and find out what you would do if you ran the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, we had big news this week. And even though it was big news, it was still no news, but it's speculation. It's leading to us wondering what is going to be coming up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is when general manager Kevin Colbert, longtime Super Bowl champion winning Kevin Colbert, talked to the media and said, look, we don't know what the future is for Ben Roethlisberger. We just know that we can't pay him. We can't work with that cap number in 2021. And once again, we have talked about this like crazy. $41 million cap hit for 2021. Can they reduce it? Well, they would have to get creative. And when you get creative, the problem with that is you would have to turn around and each side would have to make concessions. This is where it gets tricky. Even though Ben Roethlisberger is saying, hey, I'll take less money to play this year if you could bring back guys like Marquise Pouncey, which was before his retirement. He retired anyways. When he says that, is he going to have conditions if he's going to make concessions? That's the thing. And when I'm talking concessions, I'm not talking about a hot dog or a souvenir cup or anything like that. I'm talking about you're going to have to take less here. You're going to have to give up control here. That could be on either side of the negotiation table. And that's the thing. You've got a new offensive coordinator coming in Matt Canada. He is going to be running his own offense. Will Ben Roethlisberger be willing to go all in on that or want to shape it for his needs? Are the Steelers at this point thinking, you know what, kind of done. We're kind of done. We love you, Ben. You did a lot for us, but we were ready to go ahead and move on and look towards the future. Here's your good watch. Here's your gold watch. So that's kind of the thing. Now, Tales from 2 a.m. It's one of those things that we talk about stories from the past and memories, and I'm going to try to do that as well. And Dave Schofield had an article on the website this week, and I think it just ran yesterday or the day before, and it was really good. It invoked the song from Garth Brooks, Unanswered Prayers. And I actually believe that we have so many unanswered prayers, things that we really wanted to happen that didn't come into fruition. Well, he brings that up, and he brings up a guy named Trey Boston, a guy that we wanted more than anything to go ahead and shore up the safety situation. And if they would have brought him in, there would be no Minkah Fitzpatrick. There's so many times we look at the draft. What if we did this? What if we did that? Even talk about, if you go way back in time, something that I'm probably going to bring up on the show, the Dan Marino situation. If you don't pass on Dan Marino, what really happens? That's all ifs and buts and candies and nuts. And if my aunt wore pants, he'd be my uncle, something like that. But what I'm saying here is, the space-time continuum. I know that's a Back to the Future term, but I kind of believe in that. I kind of believe that every single move in the draft, if you go back in time and you change one pick for one team, it might change everything for every Super Bowl franchise. Actually, every NFL franchise. So what I'm saying is, Dan Marino, that could have completely changed the course of the team. Could have been for the better. Could have actually been for the worse. That's really something to look at there. So what I want to talk about here today is what you would do to change the Steelers if you ran the Steelers. It could be anything. It could be from the concession stand. It could be something as simple as uniforms, which I know I'm going to get to. If I ran the team, I would be talking about that, and it would be a simple change. And I think you guys already know what it's going to be. So, but let's look to the live chat. I want to hear from you, and you tell us what you would do to change the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd like to say what's up to everybody here. My feelings on the fact if you're hanging out with me on a Sunday morning, some of you are 3 hours behind. It's 6 a.m. for you, even though this is called Tales from 2 a.m. Some of you, if you're in Hawaii, it's probably pretty close to 2 a.m. So what I'm saying is if you're checking us out right now live, that means you're a true Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Even if you're not checking us out live and you're just checking us out, it's the off season. That means you're looking for Pittsburgh Steelers conversation, and we appreciate you just as much. Thank you so much. Anybody that is hanging out with us, you are very important to me. We can't do the show without you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the live chat here. Steeler Nation 412 says, heard a rumor we might pass on Najee Harris. Let's talk about the first round. And here's a question to you, Steeler Nation 412. If you ran the Steelers, would you say, if Najee Harris is there, we're going for him? That's the question. Now, the answer is not wrong or right. If you say yes, that's the right answer for what's going on in your black and gold brain, and I respect that. I'm not sure about what I would do at number 24 if Najee Harris is there, because everybody's talking about the offensive line. This is a very deep draft when you're talking about offensive tackles, which you do need. But remember, if you check out my Fact or Fiction today, you will see that offensive tackle and the offensive line isn't as in flux as you think it is. Sure, it needs some help. It needs some future to it. But remember, besides the center position, you have a starting lineup already. You have the tackles that are most likely going to be Zach Banner, even though he is a free agent. If you heard his comments this week, he's coming back. The Steelers are welcoming him back. He'll be one of the tackles. Chuks Okorafor, with another year on his deal, will be a starting offensive tackle on this team, most likely. If you look at the guards, you know that Mr. Kevin Dotson, number 69, is going to be entrenched in one of those spots, most likely left guard. And then you look at the fact that David DeCastro, a lot of you are ready to push him out the door. Maybe he was injured last season. I don't think you decline that much. He was injured at the very beginning of the season and missed a couple games. But a lot of these guys play hurt. Now, not my favorite thing. A lot of these guys come out at the end and say, oh, I played hurt all year. I just didn't tell you. David DeCastro's not that way. David DeCastro's a warrior. And another thing, if you check out my Fact or Fiction, here's another thing to talk about. Just because the veterans on the offensive line are leaving doesn't mean that everybody's going to follow suit. Yes, I think Al Villanueva is going to go ahead and leave for another team or retire. I think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year. It could be on his own accord. It could be on the Steelers' accord. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we expect, but it could be changed. So if you run the Steelers, do you say, hey, heck with that? We think we can get some more run out of Al Villanueva? That's a good question. But back to the Najee Harris thing. You can get a very good offensive tackle to start for this team for years in the second round, possibly. You could probably get a running back in the second round because we've seen that happen. But if you love Najee Harris that much and he's there and you think he could be the guy for the future, you grab him. Center is a huge need. All right. Now, this is what I'm saying. If you believe this, you're the general manager today. You own the Steelers today for the next 40 minutes or so. So that's what I'm talking about here. Don't know which direction the Steelers are going to go in. You never know. You might be looking at a guy you've never heard of on draft day that's on this team. Now, of course, a lot of you don't know anybody beyond the second round. Sometimes I don't. I'm studying, charts. I'm trying to find out who some of these players are because I didn't watch a lot of college football this season. But you might not know who everybody is. That's okay too. Hardly any of us knew who Alex Highsmith was. Did I know who Alex Highsmith was? Absolutely not. Did not know who he was. Was I excited about him on draft day for the first 10 seconds? No. It was like, who? Then you do your homework right away because we go on. Dave Schofield, Jeff Hartman, myself, we go on after every pick, and we'll be doing that this year again too. And that's a thing, we're like, wait a second, look at this guy. I didn't know who Kevin Dotson was either. The guy wasn't even sent, was not even invited to the NFL Combine last year. But he's pulling trucks in his driveway. You find out that he's one of the best offensive tackles in the ranks. He went to a small school in Louisiana. Nobody knew who this guy was. But as soon as he was drafted and you looked at him, you're like, yeah, I think I like that pick. Because guess what? Anybody here in the live chat, me included, we do not employ a scouting department that works out of our living room. We don't. We might know a lot because we're on the internet. We're looking at mock drafts. We're looking at all kinds of draft profiles, but we don't know. We're not going to the schools. We're not in the business to know. We're not Bill Nunn Sr. We're not scouts. And that's okay. So always trust that they know more than we do. Even though we look back at some of these drafts like 2016 with Artie Burns, and you're like, yeah, okay, that didn't work. They had a different plan. That was something where they took the next guy at the position. They didn't go best player available. They wanted William Jackson III. William Jackson III is not there because he goes a pick before. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, we have to have a cornerback. Everybody thinks we need to have a cornerback. They go for him. He does not work out the way they want. So there you go. Patrick Reese says, if I ran the Steelers, I'd get Deshaun Jackson. That's a really interesting concept there. I am not going to rip on that. That is something that I probably would not do. But it's your team, and I respect that. I just I'm not sure what Deshaun Jackson would add really, but think about this. If you're going to do something like that, you're probably going to get him at a veteran minimum, and you bring him in and you see what he can do. Remember, sometimes moves like that are actually valuable. With guys like that, you throw it against the wall and you see if it sticks. They picked up Wendell Smallwood last year, threw it against the wall to see if it sticks. Did not stick. But what happens if he showed enough and was able to come in and play and make a difference? They didn't lose much, but they had him there in case they wanted to try it. They didn't think after they brought him in that it was a valuable pickup. And they brought him in late in the process. But still, who knows? You bring a guy like that in. Remember, you bring in Jericho Cottree, you bring in Darius Hayward Bay. No one's celebrating that. but we look back on those guys as good depth pieces. So that's there you go. Steven Carestis. We are not going to trade the farm away for Watson, though. So he's not going to trade everybody away to bring in Deshaun Watson. I think those picks are valuable. I'm not a big fan of trading away a huge package of picks because you need to have so many. I think you need to have so many other players in there, and those draft picks are very valuable. Now, I do agree with the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. That was great because you had a guy that was 1 year in the league. He was in his second year. You get him. He was a number 1 pick. He's been a Pro Bowl twice, and you give up basically a first-round pick the next year. And what did the Steelers do with their next 3 picks? Well, their next 3 picks, without having a number 1 draft pick, they were all on PFF's all-rookie team. They were all guys that if you look at redrafts, and there are CBS Sports did a mock redraft for the 2020 season already, 3 Steelers. Claypool went at number 15 to the Broncos. At number 24, Highsmith went to the Minnesota Vikings. And that's, number 25. I'm doing this off the top of my head. And number 26, Kevin Dotson goes to the Miami Dolphins. Wow, that's absolutely amazing, isn't it? I mean, I got to tell you, they know a little more than we do, but that's not what this is about. What this is about is us figuring out what we would do if we ran the team. And I'm probably way behind. So I'm going to go ahead and look here. John Trent, we need to find a way to get Dak Prescott, whether it be trying to sign him or get him in a sign and trade with Dallas, give him $35 million a year on an extended contract, less than Ben, get a running back, fix the line. John Trent, that's not a bad idea. Here's the thing. You can fix that line. We talked about it at the beginning. The line is fixable. If you go out and get Dak Prescott, you're just spending money. You're not spending draft picks. You do that, then you turn around and you make sure he's protected and you have a running back for him to work with. That's easier said than done, but it could be done. That's the thing about it. It could be done. Now, where are we going to find the money? Don't worry about the money, because today we're not really talking about the money. But remember, the Steelers always find a way. Omar Khan is the guy that finds that money under the car seat, under the couch cushions. It's there. Now, is it going to be a lot? Is it going to be a guy to go ahead and get a guy like Dak? Probably not. No, it's not. However, if they want to do something and they want to make concessions here and concessions there to do it, that's fine. They'll find a way to get what they want to do done if they think it's not going to kill the other team. I think that's going to be majorly tough to do, but it's your franchise today, John. So I'm with you. So I looked through here. Steven says, I don't disagree, but Watson will cost first round picks, which we will not do. Yeah, that's hard to do, but it's not what we will not do. It's would you do it, Steven? Would you give up those picks and see what you can do? Ryan O'Toole says 9 a.m. and I'm watching with one eye open. I get it. Yeah, I'm tired too. True Bills. If I ran the Steelers, I would do anything to trade up for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is getting a lot of play right now. He has moved ahead of the Ohio State kid. And of course, I know his name. And now I've read his name on every single draft board. And now it's escaping me because I am tired. But, so he is a guy right there that is probably your number 2 pick in the draft. You never know. I mean, could the Jacksonville Jaguars say, hey, we looked at this guy, we like him a little better? I doubt it, that they're going to like him better than, Trevor Lawrence. But who knows? That'd be great. If you could trade up, and Jeff Hartman says this. Jeff Hartman's that guy that has been saying all along, and Dave Schofield disagrees with him. But Jeff's like, you did it with Devin Bush. You've traded up with for Troy Polamalu before. You find a way to trade up and you make a little bit of a concession and you get a guy like one of these guys, especially he wants Trey Lance from North Dakota State. I think he's amazing. I think he'd be great. You know, the kid from BYU, Zach Wilson. Yeah. If you feel enough about a prospect that you're going to trade up, then it's worth a shot. Kansas City Chiefs traded up a lot of spots back in 2017, I believe it was. 2017, 2018, to get Patrick Mahomes. I believe it was 17. They traded up to, I think, the number 10 spot to get him. The Houston Texans traded up to get Deshaun Watson as well. So, you know, you trade up to get these guys, and they become major players for you. It's really interesting. Jeff brought this up. He was on with the Aussies yesterday. Well, actually, the one Aussie, because he was filling in for Marky D, but he was on Touchdown Under. Check that out. It was a really good show. And he said there was a stat that came out that anybody from 2009 to 2017 that was picked number one at quarterback was no longer with that team anymore. Now that Stafford's flown the coop, and now that Wentz has been traded as well. It's really interesting stuff. So that's kind of the stuff that we're looking at here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back right after this on Tales from 2 a.m. If you're checking us out on any of the podcast platforms that you download your favorite podcast, just switch on over to number 2. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, just stick around. I'm going to stretch. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. What if you ran the Steelers? That's what we're asking today. And we're asking you to throw in what you would do if you ran the black and gold. And we could talk about some stories about when the Steelers did make some crazy moves. What if they did not do it? Did those crazy moves work? Did they not? Steven says, bad. Does a left-handed center make a difference if we look at Creed Humphrey? Well, that's when you work in the offseason, not just the offseason, in the preseason with your quarterback, whoever your quarterback's going to be, and you make it work. I don't know what the missed snaps and what the snap percentage of bad exchanges happened in Oklahoma. I don't know. I don't think it was probably that bad, but I think if you, just like anything, you bring in a left-handed quarterback, you know, things change. Blocking schemes change. Everything changes. So that's no problem. You know, that's something that we do. That's something that we're able to go ahead and take a look at is, you know, things have to change when you bring in a lefty. I mean, once again, if you bring in a lefty, then you're drafting a right tackle to be your blindside protector. It's not a bad thing. You can do it. We've seen left-handed quarterbacks work in this league. I know one that's in the Hall of Fame. His name's Steve Young. I know another one that I could tell you about. I believe his name was Boomer Esiason, if I'm not mistaken. I believe those guys were both left-handed quarterbacks. Now, we're not asking about a left-handed center, but what we're asking about right now is a guy that you have to change for. You make those changes in the preseason, that's fine. Yin's Nation Sports says that Ohio State center in the 3rd or 4th round could be a diamond. Is his name Wyatt Davis, if I'm not mistaken? I know I've taken interest in that name because that means another jersey for me with Davis. So I still have my Sean Davis jersey. If Carlos Davis sticks for another year, I'll be getting a Carlos Davis jersey. Yin's Nation Sports also says Chuba Hubbard. They said could be a 3rd or 4th rounder, and he is solid. Chuba is a guy that they were looking at if he would have come out last year as a maybe a 2nd round pick. He did not have the year they expected out of him, and he drops. But this was a weird collegiate year too. Michael Beck and I were on the phone the other day talking about Chuba, and that should be that's a guy that you look at as someone that could be really good. So Dean McCrae says, disagree, 1 extra 1st round pick and get a for sure future Hall of Famer. Hey, yeah, if you can get a guy like that, do that. Evgeny Crosby says the Steelers are not going to do any of these things. Probably not, but that's not what this show is about. If Kevin Colbert was in the live chat today, I'd let him say what he would do if he ran the Steelers. And guess what? He runs the personnel department. So there you go. Vic was I didn't realize this. Yins Nation Sports says Vic was a lefty too as well. I forgot about that. Thaddeus Kennedy says Mark Brunell was a great lefty. Yeah. Richard McKenney would go with the center from Oklahoma, Creed Humphrey. Second running back, second round would be Chuba. Here's the thing. The thing about the center position, you've got to decide whether there is a Marquise Pouncey out there in the first round. You could get lucky and get another guy in a lower round and he work out for you. They're two Hall of Famers at the center position, and that does not include Pouncey because we're speculating him as a Hall of Famer, but they've got two Hall of Famers. Mike Webster, 5th round in 1974. Dermontti Dawson, who's actually started out as a guard. And that's really interesting when you look at the drafts and the draft boards. Pay attention to guard center. If you see that designation, I think that the Steelers will look at a guard center to go ahead and bring in because they have some versatility there. Are they going to go with J.C. Hassenauer? I think they kind of look at him as a backup. You never know. But that's a guy that might be around for a year to ease the transition with one of these newer guys. Maybe they're in around game 6. Maybe he's going to be a placeholder. You never know. But with that, what I'm talking about here is they're going to need to get a lineman. And I was talking about Dermontti Dawson. He was a second round pick in 1988 out of Eastern Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. And so here's a guy that he became a Hall of Famer too. He did not start right away because remember, Mike Webster was actually still there in 88. In 89, they moved Dermontti over. They also, in 88 or 89, they picked a guy in the 3rd round, a true center out of Notre Dame named Chuck Lanza. And Chuck did not stick with the team. Did not stick too long if he did stick. I believe he stuck for a little bit. But so those are some of the things that you look at there. The offensive line is not too hard to fix for this team. A lot of people are saying you need to go offensive line first 2 rounds. You could. But remember, it's a deep draft. I think when Marquise Pouncey retired, that center got elevated. Center's up there now. I just realized this. I'm talking about Dermontti Dawson. I raised my hands in the air. I'm wearing Dermontti today. I've worn my number 63. So there you go. Wasn't even thinking when I did that. So see what you miss out when you don't check it out live. You get to see the clothes I'm wearing. Yeah, great. Let's take a 50-year-old guy and see what clothes he's putting on his body. Game Theory says this. Have you watched any tape on North Carolina running back Javonte Williams? He looks legit and had the highest broken tackle rate in college last year. The guy averages about 7 yards per carry. It's funny, though. There's another guy there, Michael Carter at North Carolina, that is projected to go in the top 5 as far as running backs go, not top 5 overall. Javonte Williams is a guy that I would love to see them try to get in the 2nd round. I think you would have to steal him at the pick that you're at number 56, I believe. You're going to have to steal that guy because I think he goes early in the 2nd round. But you never know. Remember, Le'Veon Bell went in the 2nd round. A lot of these guys last year went in the 2nd round. The first running back was not picked until number 32, the last pick of the 1st round, and that was Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to the Super Bowl champions at the time, the Kansas City Chiefs. John Trent, I love this. I would try and trade for Zach Ertz. You could trade for Zach Ertz right now, and he's pretty cheap. He's pretty cheap as far as compensation. He's not, you're going to have to pay his salary though. And that's the deal. That's the problem, because I don't know what his salary is. I'm probably thinking maybe about 8. He's probably making about 8 million. I'm not sure. Mule Skinner, Liam Eichenberger, Javonte Williams, Kyle Trask, 1, 2, and 3. You've got, that's how big and deep the offensive tackle position is here. You look at this kid from Notre Dame. Is it Eichenberger? I'm not sure. I think it might be Eichenberger, but I don't know. It's a long name and makes my brain hurt. But you look at him, he's probably down the chart at probably 8 or 9. A guy that is gaining a lot of steam that they're saying this guy would be awesome for the Steelers, a kid from Oklahoma State. Tevin Jenkins? Tevin, I know it's Tevin. It's with a J too. Something I better look up, huh? But yeah, it's Tevin Jenkins. And Jenkins is a guy that they're saying he's nasty. You can put him in right away. I'm looking at the rankings. They're ranking still as a number 1 or a number 2, but he's like 9th. That's how deep you are at offensive tackle. They are out there. These guys are definitely there. I kind of think they're going to go a guard first, but this is what you would do, and I love it. That's what I want, what you would do. Evgeny says the Steelers won a Super Bowl with Justin Hartwig at center. I rest my case. Yes, they did. Justin Hartwig, and I don't rip on many players, and I would never rip on Justin Hartwig here, but he went after my boy Tony Defeo a couple years ago, and so I was thinking about that. Justin Hartwig did everything he could to help win that game, but he didn't help him he didn't help him when they almost lost that game with that safety in the end zone. That safety in the end zone cost him 2 points and cost him the ball late in the game and the lead. So, but yeah, you could. But what do they need to do to get back to the Super Bowl 2 years later? They had to go ahead and draft Maurkice Pouncey in the first round. And I say this all the time. I'm going to say it again. If Maurkice Pouncey is in the lineup against the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 45, I know it's ifs and buts. They might win that game. In fact, I kind of think they do win that game. That game changes because of the center, because Ben's not getting the pressure he does. He probably doesn't throw that pick 6. This is no disrespect to Doug Legursky. I just think that when they lost Maurkice Pouncey in the AFC Championship game, they lost a lot. John Trent says, cut Hayden, sign Sutton. What's funny about the cut Hayden, sign Sutton thing, it has kind of been more of a thing now with let Hilton walk and sign Sutton, or sign Hilton and let Sutton walk. I think it's between those two, really. I think you might see, especially if this TV deal goes up, you might see the salary cap not being as big of a deal. And you might really see that Hayden, I'm starting to think Hayden's definitely back next year. That's the way the needle's turning this week. Yins Nation Sports, that I would cut Steven Nelson to free up cap and draft Asante Samuel Jr. with the first overall pick. That's what Yins Nation Sport would do. I'm cool with that too. Ryan O'Toole. Since Pouncey retired, they need someone on that line with a high nasty factor and some swagger. That's what they're saying this Tevin Jenkins kid from OSU is. Yeah, I also I'm worried. A lot of people were worried about the kid from Landon Dickerson from Alabama. That would be 2 Alabama centers with him and Hassenauer, by the way. But they're worried about his health. But that guy would be somebody really good as well. Steven says Creed Humphrey hasn't given up a sack in the last 2 years. Yeah. He hasn't. and he is that good. I can see them going for a center or a center guard in the first round. Now this one, I'm going to bring this one up next because Quinn Miners, guard, 4th round, says Mule Skinner. Man, I hope he lasts because a lot of people have noticed who this guy is, and they're moving him to center too. Mule, they're having him work out at center, and that's going to be a high possibility that he's your center guard. This guy is all kinds of perfect Pittsburgh material from Wisconsin Whitewater. I got to tell you, I never heard of Wisconsin Whitewater. Steelers Nation 412. Darnold is even a good fit for Pittsburgh, and if Juju stays, Darnold and Juju have chemistry. What's going on with the Juju thing? He comes out this week. He's telling J.J. Watt to sign with his brothers. That means he has a vested interest in the situation. That's really interesting. You never know what's going to happen now. But Sam Darnold, a lot of people are really down on the Sam Darnold thing. I got to tell you this. I saw the Carson Wentz deal, and I immediately thought, when you are only giving that up for a guy with the pedigree of Carson Wentz, then you could probably get Sam Darnold for maybe slightly less because he hasn't done anything there. Keep in mind, it's hard to do something with the New York Jets. It really is. I think Darnold is someone that I would try to get. I don't think you have to give up a first-round pick for Darnold. You don't. Maybe the Jets are going to want one, but when it comes down to the end of the day, they might have to. Might be what they have to do. I kind of like the Darnold situation. Not a lot of people do. So Thaddeus wants to know, how did Hartwig go after Tony? Tony was just and you got to understand, Tony is the nicest guy in the world. When you watch Tony on the shows, he is just the sweetest guy. And he's like that in real life. He's a laid back, nice dude. In fact, one of my favorite people in this world. And they go after, he was just talking, it was not on a podcast. It was on the website. Now, Tony is one of those guys though, too. He's got that ornery side. He's going to go ahead. If you're going to challenge him, he's going to go back after you. He's the guy that on April 1st, I'm going to tell you this, on April 1st, you're going to have something outlandish and people are going to go after him like crazy. And they're going to realize, because they're not realizing it's April 1st. Jeff Hartman actually has to put in the comments, look at the date. Last year, his mock draft was absolutely ridiculous and awesome all at the same time because he was messing with you guys and girls. He was messing, and that's what he likes to do. But he was he'll stick up for himself as well, because I got to tell you, what you don't understand is when you're new on the editorial side, they go after you. They go after you like crazy. And I almost quit after my 5th article. My 3rd article, I almost quit because I was so proud of this. I was listening to the radio, and I was listening to Ed Bouchette saying, this is 2015, that Michael Vick may come to the Steelers. They might go ahead and look at Michael Vick because Bruce Gradkowski is not going to be better. He's hurt again, and they're going to have to bring another guy in. And this was during camp. So I call up Jeff. I'm like, he said, okay, I haven't heard this. What's your source? I said, I heard Bouchette said it on the radio. He said, okay, quote that source. Go and write an article. I wrote this long article. I did not say whether the Steelers should sign him, that they're looking at signing him. The headline came out that they should sign him. I had probably the most comments I've ever had in my career after that. I had death threats to my personal email because I was such a jerk for writing this article. And I'm not saying it was the greatest article. All I'm saying is that I put a lot of time into it. I have a writing background, but that's not it. It was just the fact that I was talking about the Steelers bringing in a controversial figure, and everybody thought I was endorsing it, which I really wasn't. Hey, guess what? A couple of days later, they ended up doing it. And I'm like, really didn't want them to bring Michael Vick in, but I was just like, yes, it hit. So that's kind of what happened there. So they're on top of us. So Tony's writing an article about how the Steelers in 2008, it was a look back article. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, Tony would be better to tell this story. But what happened was he was talking about the 2008 team and how they kind of won despite that offensive line. And they really did. That was probably not their best offensive line, but they still won. Hartwig read it, called him an idiot. He sent him a few emails, and then Tony, being Tony, said, "Hey, look, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. I was just talking about the line. I should probably take a better look at that." And it was heartfelt what he wrote. Hartwig turns around and goes, "Bah, you're still an idiot," and that's it. And so, keyboard warrior now. Now, I know Tony doesn't want to face Justin Hartwig in a dark alley. I'm sure right now. I think maybe they could probably hang out together and have a coffee or an adult beverage and probably get along. But yeah, he was pretty mad at him. We had that situation even this year, which one of the most respected guys at BTSC, and I think all of Pittsburgh Steelers blogosphere and media, I think Jeff Hartman is becoming that respected guy. And I really do. And he was talking about I believe it was on the Let's Ride podcast, and he was talking about the cornerback position and how he doesn't like to mention his name, but this certain quarterback who we can't call him by his name. We'll just call him Lustin Jane. And Lustin Jane took offense to it and tweeted to Jeff about it. And so, sometimes these guys hear it and they're offended by it. But here's the thing. It's our job to go ahead and talk about the truth. Now, if it's a personal attack on one of these guys, then we should not be doing that. We're not. We haven't. And we're not going to. But players do go ahead and take a look at it, and sometimes there is offense taken. So that's kind of what happened in the Tony situation. But it's some of the things we do get flack on our personal emails sometimes. I know I do. And gosh, I once compared, I thought I was being funny. I once compared Bill Belichick to a certain biological monthly female function. Boy, they went crazy. One person just attacked me on a personal email and berated me, even threatened to. I mean, I'm sure your wife, if she read that or heard that, would think you're an awful person. I'd like to send this to her. I'm like, well, my gosh. First of all, my wife knows my humor, and I run some of this controversial stuff by her, and she's like, yeah, that's nothing. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. So some people get bent out of shape and think we're jerks because they don't know who we are. But what's so great about this podcast platform is when you're watching us and not reading us, you kind of find out who we are a little bit more as far as humans. And that we just are blessed to have this platform. I mean, as you can see behind me, I've got a family picture. We're all wearing Steelers stuff. I have a picture of the Steelers praying before Super Bowl 40, and I've got my little tickets that I just got for Christmas framed. That's just, I mean, I'm just like you guys. I just am blessed to have this platform. So let's get back to this. John Trent says, bad. What would you do if you ran the Steelers? I would bring back block numbers. I teased that before. Got to bring back those block numbers. It's been since 1997 since we've had these rounded ones, and I get why the chairman, why the ambassador wanted to do it. He wanted the numbers on the front of the helmet to match the uniforms. I just really crave those block numbers. When they did that in that game against Cleveland and against the Rams, when they wore those, oh man, I thought they looked absolutely gorgeous. I just think that look is huge. If I ran the Steelers this year, I am, I'm definitely bringing in a guard or a center with my first pick. And I'm considering Najee Harris in the first round. If I can, I'm trading up and looking at a quarterback. As far as the Ben Roethlisberger situation goes, I've been accusing Kevin Colbert of pushing him out the door. I might be doing the same thing if I ran the team, just because of that huge cap hit. Not because of Ben, but because of the huge cap hit. Am I right? Probably not. Remember, I talked about the Dan Marino thing. Could have changed everything if they would have brought him in. What if it didn't? We don't know what would have happened here. I think they could have won a couple Super Bowls, but we would not be talking about Marquise Pouncey. We would not be talking about Ben Roethlisberger. We probably wouldn't be talking about any of these guys. The complete face of the team would have changed with just bringing one pick in. So I'm going to say, you know what happened in the past happened. Let's look towards 7, and I'm not talking Ben. Number 7, 7th Lombardi. Let's look towards that and see what we can do. One of the reasons I've talked about some Steelers stories about guys that we wanted. I mean, Dave talked about in that article, Trey Boston. I remember back in 1994, the Cowboys won the Super Bowl for the second time. The Steelers were looking at bringing in Alvin Harper from the Cowboys. And he was a restricted free agent. I think it had a different name at the time. I can't remember what the name. It was something a little different, but they were going to have to give up, looked like a 1 and a 3 to get him. First and a third round pick to get this guy. And it would have been, if I'm not mistaken, would have probably been in the 95 draft. And the guys they ended up, Mark Bruner in the first round, who had a decent career with the Steelers, the tight end out of Washington. And in the third round, they brought in Brendan Sty. So that's they would have given those guys up for a marginal, really a guy who would have been a marginal wide receiver. So sometimes those big names you look at that we got to bring these guys in, they don't work. Mr. Hammer Z's, hey, Bad, hope all is well. If I was GM, I'd go get Corey Linsley from the Packers for center, draft a quarterback round 1. Wow, Corey Linsley, that guy. I've been doing these free agent market watch, and I threw in that we probably can't afford because I'm going to get all these emails, especially from the Facebook side, saying this is a stupid article. Why do you even write it? Because we can't afford any of these guys. So that's why I put that tagline on it. Corey Linsley, when you look at his grades, this guy is the perfect center and would be the perfect center for the Steelers. Can they afford him? Mr. Hammer Z is going to find a way to afford him, and I respect it. I think that would be great. Christian Cahill, he wants to trade back, grab a second and third, draft Josh Myers and running back Williams in the second, look at a linebacker from Houston or LSU in the third, and the best available player. I am not opposed to them trading back if they can get value for it. There you go. No one says whole team needs to get a nasty streak. They were soft. I think they can find their nastiness again. Thaddeus Kennedy says he'd never trade for a running back. John Trent says Bettis. Bettis was one of those rare deals. That Bettis is a lot like the Minkah Fitzpatrick thing, because Bettis is a guy that was going into his 4th year, and they gave up basically nothing for him on draft day. He fell out of favor with the Rams because Rich Brooks, remember he was the coach at Oregon when Oregon took on Penn State in the Rose Bowl back in '94, And Rich Brooks came in and he had a high octane offense. They wanted Lawrence Phillips. They thought Lawrence Phillips was the guy, and it really wasn't. So Bettis was available. Those trades don't happen very often when you get a player that young in a trade. But it's your team, so I get it. Dante Harris says, we just got a first-round quarterback steal from the Washington football team. Dante, I don't disagree with that completely. I think, once again, I don't think that Dwayne Haskins was brought in to be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think he was brought in to be the starter. I think he was brought in to give the guy a chance because he definitely has some film from college. He definitely has some skills. He definitely needs to grow more as a NFL player. He needs to be in a good environment. Hopefully Pittsburgh is a good environment for him. But you got a guy that was picked in the 15th round. I mean, with the 15th pick of the first round, not that long ago. We just talked about, a guy like Minka becoming available, a guy like Bettis becoming available. Well, Dwayne Haskins might be the guy. Is he going to be? I think he's got a long road to prove that he could be. He's not going to be asked to be right away. But if he shows up, he might get an opportunity to start. If he doesn't, then it didn't work. And guess what? They didn't give up anything for him. He's coming in at the league minimum. So there you go. Evgeny Crosby, Lawrence Phillips knew how to throw a punch. Lawrence Phillips was really trouble. He really was. I bet you, with hindsight being 2020, that they would have gone back and decided to try to make things work with Jerome Bettis and work that around him. Mark Tobin, really think the Steelers are looking to Banner and Chooks for the tackle spots. 100%. I really think they are. And you're probably going to see another 1-year deal. Remember, Banner bet on himself last year and lost the bet, and it wasn't his fault that he lost the bet. He got hurt. 59 plays into his first time as a starter. So, you know what? I think Banner is going to be the guy this year with a 1-year deal. And hopefully we're talking about, hey, we need to sign him to a huge deal next year at this time, or we're going to lose him to another team, because I think he has a great season coming in. I'm not sure whether they would be putting him in as a right tackle or a left tackle. But one thing to know about Zach Banner, remember Michael Beck, Dave Schofield, and myself, we had a podcast where we interviewed Zach Banner. And he said, a lot of people think that I'm a great run blocker, which he is. He's fantastic as a run blocker. And that's what the Steelers need. They need another run blocker. He said, but when I was protecting Sam Darnold, my entire career there, he was sacked 3 or 4 times, and that's it. And that's true. I look back at it. Sam Darnold wasn't getting touched with Zach Banner in front of him. He's a beast of a man. Great guy. I love that guy. But I got to tell you, Zach Banner, he's starting for this team this year if he's healthy. And I think he's going to be healthy. And I would not bet against Banner. The only thing I'm betting against is health, but I think his health's going to be fine. Mule Skinner says this: Jeff George had the greatest arm I've ever seen, but he had a 5-cent head. Absolutely. I don't know if I'd give 5 cents for that head. Mark Tobin, and they will draft a linebacker in the first, or maybe shock the world and take a runner. Yeah, if they love a guy this much, they take him. Joe Lewis, thank you, Joe. Bad, you and Tony are the reason I watched. Just saying, thank you. I will say this. Check out everybody else too, because the shows that we have put together here, I am so proud of. I know I'm the podcast producer, but I look at these shows. Know Your Enemy. We're not doing Know Your Enemy right now, but we might be revamping that for college draft guys, and nobody interviews guys like Michael Beck and Jeffrey Benedict together. They're really good. I appreciate Joe. If you like me and Tony, you like the stories. But I got to tell you, listen to some of the shows with the Aussie guys, with Jeff and Dave and Big Bro Sco, and I mentioned Jeffrey and Mike, and I hope I'm not missing out on anybody here. When we have Kevin Smith on, most of the time that's on the audio side. If you're not checking out the audio side, please check it out. Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's, I think, one of the best shows on not just the network, but one of the best Pittsburgh Steelers shows around. Check out Jeff Hartman on Let's Ride. A lot of people don't know because they just check us out on YouTube or Facebook, but check us out on anywhere you download a podcast. There's some other shows that you don't get on here. So thank you. That means a lot to me. That's why we do it, because of you guys. Thank you. Jeff Volan asked, is the Cap Room on YouTube? No, it's not. The Cap Room shows up on Wednesdays around 5 p.m. And, I'm an old guy. So when you tell me to download a show, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's going to take up all this space and all this. No, man, all you have to do is click on it, really. If you go to Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere there's so many platforms, you're going to find BTSC on there, and it's basically clicking on it, and that's it. It's really, easier than you would think. I didn't know it. Because like I said, my wife is telling me right now, she's like, when it comes to technology, you're an old man. You're becoming your dad. You're becoming my dad, is what she's saying. I'm like, stop that. But I had to set up my new work iPad. For my real job. I had to set this up. I have a 13-year-old that's an Apple genius when it comes to Apple products, and he's setting up for me. And I'm getting mad because they took my home button away. Here's my phone. They took my home button away. I can't take it. I need that home button, and it's not there, and this swiping and stuff. Good thing I'm not dating, and because that swipe left thing that you've got to do to find a date, I couldn't do. It would mess me up. Jack Bauer, and every time I see this name, I do this to you, Jack, all the time. I think of 24 and Kiefer Sutherland. That's just awesome. In fact, I'm trying to get my wife to let us binge watch all 8 seasons of 24, one of my favorite shows. We should be rooting for Haskins to succeed. What would mean? That would mean we basically got a franchise quarterback for free. Yes. Yeah. Don't roll that out. If he has a career renaissance with the Steelers, if he wakes up and says, hey, I haven't been taking this seriously. What if he does that? And he comes out and plays. Like I said, somebody said WFT is a joke. The Washington football team, I think it's going to get better. I don't think that was the guy that I think that's the guy that Snyder wanted to draft. But I think in a system like Pittsburgh, I really like, by the way, Mike Sullivan. I love this hire. I think he could be a no-nonsense guy that can get the best out of players as a quarterback coach. I really like that hire. So that's a guy you look at too. Haskins might surprise you. But once again, if he doesn't, you didn't lose anything by bringing this guy in. And that's it. You don't have to be married to him. You take a flyer. Hey, you know what? You go to a restaurant and you'd be like, I'm going to try this crab donut for dessert. It's a donut with crab filling inside it. And you might like, that sounds disgusting. I'm like, that sounds interesting. I might try it. And you try it. And it's the greatest thing you ever tasted. You're like, this is a culinary delight. I love it. I'm going to tell everybody this is great. Next thing you know, crab donuts are all the rage. Everybody's having crab donuts. Or you taste it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the worst idea ever. I'm never ordering this again. So that's it. That's the Dwayne Haskins situation. You can just decide that, it didn't work. It was worth a shot. What did I lose out of it? I lost the $8 for the crab donut, or whatever you're willing to pay for the crab donut. They're paying him $750,000. Maybe it's $850. It might be $850. and that's what they're paying him, and that's the league minimum. If he sticks, like Jack just said, you got a franchise quarterback for free if he sticks. If he doesn't, sorry, buddy, it didn't work out. We tried. You tried. Good luck on your future endeavors. That's it. There you go. Running out of time. I want to bring up Steven. Bad doesn't have to be every week. Still going to put in my request for the after party. Nothing better than the BTSC crew cutting it up in the offseason, and we get to see the real Mr. 2 a.m. You will get an after party. I got to tell you, we're so tired with all the stuff on the site that sometimes we don't. We were doing one a lot. We will get one back. Now, the real Mr. 2 a.m. The next guy I'm going to pull up is probably going to be able to tell you. And the next guy in the live chat, I didn't know he was going to be on. That's my dad right there with a question. But he's going to tell you that Mr. 2 a.m. growing up was not as cool as he makes you out to be, that I make myself out to be. The 2 a.m. stories, they're not lies. They're true, but I'm still not that cool. I was a dork growing up. Dad asked, do you think that with a new OC that Mason Rudolph could be more than a backup? A lot of people are really loving the idea of Mason Rudolph right now. Kevin Colbert comes out and says, hey, we were really impressed with him. You got to say that because they're pushing Ben out the door. They've got to really hype up Mason Rudolph. I think you saw a lot of Matt Canada in that Week 17 game with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph looked very good, the best that we've seen him. Mason Rudolph is not the guy that struggled in that first year. Remember, he was not preparing to be a number one quarterback. Ben was getting most of the reps, except for on Wednesdays. But that was his rookie season, basically, and it was trial by fire. But I think with a new offensive coordinator, you can see a little bit more out of Mason Rudolph. And I think if Ben does not start the 2021 season, I'm telling you, Mason Rudolph is your man. He is going to be your quarterback for this year, for 2021, if it is not Ben. I would be surprised if it's anybody else. There's probably a few more comments that I didn't even get to, and I do apologize. But thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you're saying in here. There's some talks on bringing Le'Veon Bell back, bringing Kathy Forhead says this, and always good to see Kathy in there. Bell likely done. I kind of think Bell's done. Boy, everybody that thought, man, we can't keep him. I mean, we're really losing out by losing this guy. Well, gosh, they knew more than we did when they were trying to give him the money. But when we wanted more, didn't work. Now, is Antonio Brown done? I don't think he's done. He's not coming back to Pittsburgh. They're never bringing him back. But the thing about that is Antonio Brown, he played better when he got the chance. And it was never a question on his play. I think you might see a Pro Bowl season out of Antonio Brown next year, especially if he stays in Tampa. But Le'Veon is not the same player. Antonio Brown, like Mule Skinner says, he's not done. No, he's not. I think, in fact, if he stays out of trouble, Antonio Brown will play until he's 40. In fact, the guy might play until he's 42. He's not going to leave. He's not going to be one of those guys that retires. He's not. Jeff Folan says he's not done, but he's done in Pittsburgh. Yeah, he really is. That bridge has been burnt. The only places that bridges don't get burnt is the WWE, and that's about it. Where they bring a guy that hates the boss back, and they do well together. Then there's some guys like Macho Man Randy Savage and CM Punk that says, I'm done with you. I'm never coming back. But there you go. Evgeny doesn't agree. I don't think AB's done. I really don't. Jared Devil says that bridge was nuked. And I got to tell you, Jared Devil, I got to say something about Jared Devil. Always the first one in the live chat. And I got to say that. I love it. Jared Devil was, when that notification comes out, he's there. And a lot of you are too. And I really appreciate you. So, and now I've inspired wrestling talk with NWO coming back is huge, man. I've got to get onto that. SB Nation has a WWE and a wrestling platform too, just like Behind the Steel Curtain. One of these days, I want to guest on there. I probably wouldn't be as good as I am on here. Not saying I'm good on here, but anyways, hey, that's all for me. I love you guys and girls, men, ladies. Whoever you are out there, you bleed black and gold, and that's awesome. And once again, if you're hanging out with me on a February Sunday morning, hanging out with some idiot here that loves the Steelers just as much as you do, well, I appreciate it because we can't do these shows without you. And there's no reason to do these shows without you. Even the person that said I look like the next Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos because of the gray on the side. My wife, I showed her a picture. She thought that was the funniest thing ever. So I love you too, even though you're ripping on my hair. Remember, only genetic lottery this guy's ever going to win is this hair. And if you're checking us out on the podcast platform, you can't see the hair, so you'll have to look me up. But with that being said, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I have a feeling that it's going to be a crazy week in Pittsburgh Steeler land. So check out Behind the Steel Curtain for everything, all of your Pittsburgh Steeler needs. Breaking news, especially, you're going to find it here. Are we going to find out something about Ben Roethlisberger? I don't know. Once again, I love Ben Roethlisberger. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I hope whatever works out for the best for 2021 and going forward. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So with that being said, remember, Behind the Steel Curtain, remember to tune in. But I'm going to ask you this. Be real. Be true to yourself, and always be behind the steel curtain. We'll see you.